project we're going to be using this wonderful new product from Walnut Hollow. Alright, I want to create a whitewashed effect on the wood here, and the way I'm going to do that is by using a couple of different colors of white paint. And I know the differences are really subtle. I've got Snow White, I've got Vanilla Shake, Mushroom, and this one's called White Birch. And the differences won't be terribly noticeable, but I just want it to look like each of these planks came from a different old fence or, something different, so that there's some slight variation there. The way I'm going to create my wash is by combining the paint with a glazing medium and some water. So the reason I use the glazing medium is sometimes if you just use water, the paint and the water tend to separate and then you get splotches of color. And this helps, just sort of combine the water and the paint a little bit better. So you use equal parts of the glazing medium with equal parts water, okay? So that's what I use here, half a teaspoon. I'm just mixing up small amounts. And then you add up to 35% of your paint. So that, I just kind of eyeball. There we go. Just put a little bit, and we can always add more if we feel like we need a little more color. So I'm going to mix that up and until it's all blended really nicely. And those kind of chunks of paint are gone, and now it's just basically watered down paint. But since I used the glazing medium, see, it's really nice and smooth. Then I just take my brush and just quickly get that onto the wood there. If you want to, if you feel like it's too much color, you could take a dry brush and go over it again, or you could take a towel and kind of wipe some of the paint back. Okay. And so, like I said, it's a very, very subtle color. And once it's dry, we'll come back and we'll distress it a little bit more. So I'm going to finish up one section, and then I'll mix up some more paint and do the next panel. So now that I've whitewashed all the boards in the 4 different shades that I chose, I'm going to take the darkest color of the 4, and in my case it's a color called Mushroom, and I'm not going to dilute it this time. I'm going to use it just to fill in right here on these little boards. Okay. Alright, so now I'm going to use a color called Red Barn. I'm going to paint the heart plaque, and I'm also going to paint around the edges of the US outline. And I'm doing this, as I mentioned before, to kind of tie the whole piece together. I want it to look like they're different pieces of wood from different barns or different fences, but still look cohesive as the United States. So I'm going to go all the way around the edge, give this a nice red trim, and it's also going to help tie it in with the heart, which is also going to be painted red. And I didn't dilute this or do a wash. I want this to be a nice, bold, red barn color, which I think is so pretty. Okay, so now that I've whitewashed the boards, I've got the reddish outline going out here. I want to distress the finish a little more. It's just a little too clean for me. So I'm going to add a stain. And the way I'm going to do that is by using a staining antiquing medium. And I don't want the stain to overwhelm the piece, so I'm going with a lighter brown. This color is called Brown Sugar. So what I do is mix equal parts of the staining antiquing medium. You'll see that's kind of thick like a jelly. Okay. With the paint, and I just kind of eyeball it. It's probably smarter to measure it. I'm terrible about stuff like that. We're going to mix that up. Okay. And what that antiquing medium does is it makes it easier for you to kind of wipe back this color. You'll see that in a minute. So I'm going to use a brush and an old cloth to wipe this back. I'm going to take a little, get the excess off. I just want a tiny bit here. And I like to start on the edges and just kind of roughly dry brush that on, and then quickly take your cloth and wipe it back. And you see there how it kind of fades into the wood? So it gives it that aged, kind of dirty look, but you're able to wipe it back so that you're not seeing the brush strokes. So the important thing is to, get as much off your brush as you can and just kind of work it in where you think, the wood would start to look dirty and have dust and dirt accumulate on it. Don't let it sit too long. You want to wipe it back quickly, so work one section at a time until you're happy with the finished look. Okay, so for the last part of the project, we are going to wood burn our phrase onto the heart that we've painted. So I've chosen the letters that I'm going to use. I'm using these hot stamps from Walnut Hollow with their hot tool, and I'm spelling out land that I love. I've arranged it the way I want it to look, and now I'm going to use some tape that I cut into thin strips just to kind of help me with placement there. Alright, so I've stamped my first letter. I used a pair of pliers to take it off. I've turned my hot tool off, and now I'm adding the next letter that I'm going to use. And I'm using pliers because this is very hot, so don't touch it with your hands. So that makes this a little time consuming, but it's well worth it to get the end result. To finish up, I'm going to put some wood glue on the back of the plaque. And I can always use nails later to reinforce this. I'm going to use this center line to help kind of line it up, make sure my heart